Y'all in America have fires on your rivers? That's concerning. Fix it. Hi, so I'm Grace. This is Grace Philly, and today we're going to go through all of the books that I read in the month of September 2021. Okay, let's just get straight into it. I read 5 books this month. 4 physical books, 1 audiobook, and that audiobook was like the first time I ever read an audiobook. I'm excited to tell you my thoughts and feelings. Yeah, let's get into it. I read a lot of like popular books, so stay tuned because I have unpopular opinions about the popular books because I'm an individual like that. I'm going to go in the order of the books that I rated the highest to the worst book of the month. And the worst book of the month, there will be a rant. There will be a rant because anyway, so let's get into the first book. That one is A Court of Silver Flame by Sarah J. Maas. Okay, I'm going to bring my notes over here because I don't think I can form coherent thoughts about this. I read this book. She's giant, but like worth every single page. Every single page. I adored this so much. Like, okay, so I'm gonna kind of gather my thoughts into 3 sections. 1, female friendships, phenomenal. The female friendships in this book absolutely blew me away. I'm kind of annoyed that it doesn't go sapphic. That is like a thing about Sarah J. Maas that I just grinds my gears a little bit because I feel like there was a relationship in here that could have happened. And I was like, please happen, but I'm Sarah J. Maas, so we're not, no sapphic stuff here. We'll say it is, we'll say it's going to be, and then just not do it. But yeah, and then kind of going off that, there was like a lot of like exploration of PTSD and like trauma and how that like manifests in a person and how it doesn't just like go away. And how like in A Court of Mist and Fury we focused on like Feyre's mental health journey, but this one we focused on Nesta and how those are so different and so separate. And I felt this one was done incredibly. I know people dislike this because of like, they're like, Nesta, get over it. And I'm like, no, Nesta, do your journey the way you need to do it, because like the mental health rep in this book honestly was just incredible. I could not speak highly of it. The way that there's like little details and little abstracts of just ordinary life that Nesta just can't live because of this trauma is just so realistic, and I think that we need like more accurate rep, which one of these books that I read later on doesn't have. So spoilers for the next books. Cassian is my favourite boy, and that's all I have to say, because Cassian, oh, I love him. Oh, also Reese, excuse me, get out. Reese pissed me off a lot in this book. I feel like it was justified in a way, especially considering like the characterization of the creatures in this novel, but I did have a lot of issue with the way he was behaving. Oh, and also the last 100 pages of this book will break you. I made notes while I was reading this book, and my last few notes are just hilarious. I love reading them. So so I have, fuck, I'm about to cry, stop, I love them. No, stop this, Sarah. Yes, I'm hugging this book. Incorrect, just no. And then I cannot cope with this constant toying with my emotions. And that's from page 696 to 727. So if you want a book that will toy with your emotions, pick this one up, because I love it and I'm so excited for the next book, and I have many theories. I think closer to the release date of the next book, I might release those theories, but I'm enjoying it so far. I'm not talking about the Smut because I didn't read the Smut. But yeah, I read like a few scenes. I thought they were a bit too much, but I'm also not into Smut. So if you are, you'll probably like it. It gets hot, and I'm like, whoo, okay, calm down. Yeah, so this one was a 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm so excited for the next one. I love Nesta now. Sarah changed my opinion on Kale, and now Nesta, and I'm thinking there's another character that I'm going to change my mind on in the next book. I just want to give it a hug. Is this my thumbnail? So, the next book that I read in September was a non-fiction book, actually, and I don't normally read non-fiction. I read Humans by Tom Phillips. So if you have read the book Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, this is a parody of that book. So it's a brief history of how we fucked it all up, and it focuses on climate change, environmental degradation, war, and just how terrible humans can be, but they do it in the scope of comedy, which makes it just like so much better, so much easier to deal with, and so much easier to inform. Like some of these things I was like, what the heck? Like, y'all in America have fires on your rivers? That's concerning. Fix it. And there was a lot of stuff on Australia, which I kind of knew already because it was like, we stuffed Australia from the beginning. But there was like other histories I was really interested in. The chapter on Hitler, because he is included in this, was actually really interesting and gives you kind of like an alternate history to like the monolithic Nazi empire that we were exposed to in most histories. And this one kind of gives like, I don't want to say a funny look, because it's just seems like a very human, realistic look at it. I said this, and this spoils the next book I'm going to mention, but it says, I read this after normal people thinking it was going to be funny and lighthearted because it is fucked on the cover, but now I'm just sad and disappointed in humanity. So I initially rated it at 5-star, but then I was like, I've not read enough nonfiction to rate this 5-star. So I rated it 4/4.5. I would suggest reading this, especially if you're just trying to get into like environmentalism and stuff like that. It really prompted me to actually add some kind of climate change and environmentalist books onto my TBR. And I think you should read it. Humans, Tom Phillips. It also smells really good. This is a sniffing book. Next up, I read Normal People by Sally Rooney. For those of you who don't know, but I'm sure you do, it's about Connell and Marianne, and it's about their relationship over the span of about 3 years, I think, from about high school to college age, and how they fall in and out of love, in and out of relationships, in and out of friendship, and just essentially about the connection between these two people, whether it be a good or bad connection, and just about falling back on someone you can trust, I think is what this book is about. So I actually read this book twice in September. So yes, instead of picking up another book to read, I did indeed just read Normal People twice. But I read it in audiobook the second time because I want to try it in audio. But the first time I read it, I rated it 4 stars, and I did enjoy it, but there was just a few issues that I found with it. First one was that I found it really Manic Pixie Dream Girl. I found that the female character was just constantly building up this male character to kind of be a better version of himself and make him realize these things about himself. And as I was reading it, I was getting kind of annoyed by it. I was like, come on, like, can this girl not just do something that doesn't have a consequence on him? But it wasn't like detrimental. It was just like, you know how John Green novels have like an undertone of Manic Pixie Dream Girl? Like the novel is still good, but you're like, oh, I wish it didn't have that. But then on a second read, I actually didn't find that the case. I just think that the character growth and the character building isn't as prominent in the first time. But then when you read it the second time, you're like, oh, this is why this happens. And the second reading was really good. And I think also maybe because it was audiobook, I understood different nuances. But I really enjoyed the second read through. The only thing that did kind of happen in both read-throughs is that there's representation of medical institution, like going to therapy and medication, and I thought that representation was actually not very well done. I think that if anything, it would tell people to stop going to therapy and to not kind of take that step to speak to a psychologist, because the therapist in this was very cold, I found, and just kind of used medication as a solution rather than like cognitive behavioral therapy, which I feel, and in my experience, has been like the first step that psychologists take. So that kind of irked me, and that really did knock it down a full star for me, just because that's important to me, mental health rep. And if you're not doing that correctly, and if it is represented as bad, I wish the author would say, like, this is not a good representation of the mental health system, if that makes sense. Or here's how they overcame that challenge in the mental health system. But I feel like Sally Rooney represented it as normal. But apart from that, honestly amazing. I really loved that only took place for like 30 pages. So that's why it's not like the detriment of the whole novel. But apart from that, the prose is beautiful, and there are so many scenes that just are so innately human, and they hit you so hard. Like there is a scene where one of the characters is just laying on the floor between, like in their studio apartment, between the bedroom and the bathroom, and they just can't get up off the floor. Like they're like, nothing matters. I'm on the floor. The same thing's going to happen tomorrow, whether I'm on the floor or not. And it just like that just depth. There's so many like innately human moments, and I have like underlined the heck out of it. It's a really good book. If you're worried about the prose not having quotation marks, don't be. It becomes very natural when you've read it, and probably like 2 chapters in, I was totally used to it. And actually, I was wishing that books didn't have quotation marks because I just flew through it. I think the lack of quotation marks, like, I don't know why, but I think quotation marks cause like a break in my head, and I'm like, okay. And it was actually easier to read than without them. So I'm converted. Also, about 20 pages into this book, I bought the other 2 Sally Rooney books because I was just adoring it so much. I love her writing. It's very lyrical and metaphorical, but also not too like pretentious and over your head. You know what I mean? So that was 2 books, just for the record. I audiobooked it. And if you have any other audiobooks that I should listen to, please let me know, because I'm kind of first venturing into it and I find that some things kind of slip past. So if you have any advice about listening to audiobooks, please chuck it down below, because I need it quite desperately, because I like doing it when I'm at work, like doing filing, or like doing chores and stuff like that, but I can't always focus on it entirely, so I don't know how to split my focus between the audiobook and my task, like people tend to do. So please let me know about that one. And then the last book I read, yay. This book pissed me off. So I went into this book. It was like a nice little, a walk through the park. I started off, and it was actually it was well written. It was like a little worse than normal people, but it was a solid 3-star read. I could tell that there were like traits and themes that were present in normal people that just weren't as developed in this book. And also like metaphors that were either too prominent. Like there was one where she was like, oh, my mum, she works harder than me. And then the next line was, her hands were calloused and mine were not calloused. And I was like, you already said that, babe. You don't need to say it again. Thank you very much. And also there was this dog, and I don't know whether it was supposed to be a metaphor or not, but this dog kept popping up, and like its emotions would change depending on who it was with. But I don't understand the metaphor, or if there even was, but the dog didn't have a name. So I was like, surely it's a metaphor. Why is it here? Anyway, so yeah, there was a lot of like underdevelopment of metaphors, or too prevalent metaphors. And you could tell that Sally is just kind of getting used to writing and character development, and like that was okay. That was fine. I was like, this is a solid 3-star read. I'm enjoying it. It's fine. But then, no one in this book, apart from like the love interest, is a nice person. 2, and people don't have to be like them books, but 2, it's a love gap romance, which I'm not personally a fan of, but I'm willing to suspend my disbelief when it's a novel. It's like 21 and 34, which I'm like, ooh, I find a bit disturbing. But the girl acts like she's 16. She has the maturity level of a 16-year-old, and she's dating a 34-year-old. So in my eyes, when I was reading it, it wasn't a 21-year-old dating a 34-year-old, like a fully consensual relationship, despite like the uneven power dynamic. It felt like a 16-year-old dating a 34-year-old. And that made me feel icky. And that was kind of when it started going downhill. And then I didn't even have an issue with the relationship once this main character started talking, because she does so many rude and terrible things to people who are around her, and just doesn't have a single repercussion. And people apologize to her for the bad things that she is doing. And that's essentially... What a bitch! I was probably like 50 pages. I was almost 50 pages from the end of this book. And I was about to put it down. I was like, this bitch. She keeps doing very terrible things. And just... people keep apologizing to her when she should be apologizing to them. She's not a good person. She's not a good person. She's just not a good person. So don't read this book. Read Normal People. Read it. Read Normal People. It's developed and a really good story. This one is not. This one, don't get to it. I rated it 2 stars. It has like some good parts, like the prose again is very good. Like the writing has kind of relatable aspects to it. I enjoyed like the first quarter of it. Yeah. You know when something's like not 1 star, but it's definitely not like any more than a 2 star. That was this. I'm going to show you what I'm currently reading this month. So if you did want to hear my thoughts on them, please subscribe. It would mean the world. I'm really happy how this thing is going already, and I just want to keep doing it. So the books I'm currently reading is Eckhart's Tolle, The Power of Now. I'm tabbing it. I want to make a video on it. Self-help book. Then The Trials of Morrigan Crow, Holopox. The Hunt for Morrigan Crow, Holopox. It's really good. It's a middle grade. Very reminiscent of Harry Potter. If you want a Christmassy read, this is it. If you want a fuzzy read, this is it. And then I'm also reading Buddy Reading with Books with Em, who, if you want someone that is much calmer than me to just get a warm drink with and sit down and just listen to someone speak calmly to you, that's the booktuber you should be watching. She's really lovely. Watch her channel. But we're reading Priory of the Orange Tree together, which is actually a lot of fun. So I hope that you enjoy. I feel like I rambled a lot, but I feel like that's also me. So if you've got a problem with it, I'm sorry. But yeah, so these are all the books I'm currently reading versus reading in September. Yay! If you like this type of content, please subscribe, like the video, leave a comment. If you can't think of anything to comment, it's about to rain. It's really good weather in Sydney at the moment. It's constantly about to rain. And then it rains at night time, and then I get a hot chocolate and a book, and it's glorious. So leave a storm cloud down below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please stay tuned. I upload a video at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. I hope you read some magnificent books in September. Yeah, have a wonderful day. Bye. You didn't say bye-bye, Liam.
Oh, I'm gonna fucking pop now.
Thank you.